Hello there, I'm Jenn Rice, and I am going to give a few minutes for people to hop on, but welcome. We are doing a 30-minute workshop. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and I will definitely probably get to that after the end of the broadcast and then answer shortly after we post this in its entirety. So I just want to quickly introduce myself. I am a PA, a physician assistant by trade. I've been doing allopathic medicine for 16 years now, mostly in dermatology, but also allergy, immunology, and urgent care, and a few other areas of medicine that have taught me a lot. But where I really changed a lot of my own personal health was when I began to learn about functional medicine. And that was due to my own personal health crisis. About 4 years ago, I just was feeling awful. I was feeling fatigue, tired all the time. It didn't matter if I slept 9 hours at night. I was just barely getting by. And I'm going to go ahead and mic up too while we're kind of doing the lead up here and letting some people jump on and get going on this. But the main thing that brought me to functional medicine was that I knew that in allopathic medicine that it was going to be to get better. I had heartburn, fatigue. I didn't have any real lab abnormalities, but I knew that if I didn't do something about my health, it was only going to get worse and worse. I was already putting on, over 10 pounds a decade. I think I got to 175 pounds or so, which was the heaviest I'd ever been. I'm 5'8", and I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel good in my clothes. I didn't feel good in my body. And I just really wanted to change. Not so much the weight loss, I always say, was a side effect from getting my heartburn under control, my gut under control. And through my journey with functional medicine was where I just fell in love with the process of healing yourself. There are many things that we can do with prescription medications. There are a lot of them out there. There are great treatments that if you have a trauma, you're in a car accident, you break your arm, the medicine that we offer is very helpful. But when it comes to chronic smoldering symptoms and conditions, the medicine that we have is just not really something that can heal you. And functional medicine works on root cause. Why is this happening? What are you eating that could be contributing to this? How are you handling your stress? How well are you sleeping? So many of these things. I got into coaching because it seemed like just a natural progression in my journey. And I've really enjoyed helping people with their gut health, their overall health. And I started a membership about 3 weeks ago for Love Your Gut Club, because I wanted to offer a high value, low cost option for people to begin healing themselves. So let's jump in to why you're here, and let's start with the gut health quiz. And if you already took this because you signed up for the workshop and you already took it, you already know your score. But if life got in the way and you didn't take the quiz, we'll take just a couple minutes here to run through the quiz so that you can take it real time, if that's helpful. Do you take prescription medication and or over-the-counter medicine? And that's not just like a one-off, if you take a Tylenol or you took one a couple days ago, you don't normally take them, I wouldn't really count that. But if you regularly take Advil or Tylenol daily, or antihistamines, or prescription medicine, you'd answer yes or no. And that includes birth control pills. How many hours of sleep do you get most nights? 7 or more, 5 to 7, or 5 or less. And the score is according to, if you're sleeping 5 or less, that's 10 points. Do you exercise 30 minutes in a brisk activity? Zumba, fast walking, elliptical, power yoga, you get a little out of breath, tennis, anything like that. Once a week, 2 to 3 times a week, 4 or more days a week, and then score it accordingly. Do your parents or siblings have chronic health issues? High blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol? Has anyone had a stroke? Anyone with Alzheimer's or dementia? Just think back to many of us have family members that have all of these and more. So yes to more than 3 of these, yes to 1 to 2, and then no, not at all. That would be amazing if you say no, not at all. How often do you get sick? Sinus infections, the common cold, flu bug, even upset stomach, diarrhea type of flu bug, chronic cough, anything like that. Every couple of months, 3 to 4 times a year, or rarely, like you can't really remember the last time that you were sick. How often do you feel bloated with gas, heartburn, or upset stomach? Once a month, several times a month, several times a week. Now, I was definitely a several times a week, several times a day. Do you experience breakouts, so acne, rosacea, and or skin rashes? Yes, not at all, a couple times a year. Do you feel stressed or anxious? Not the kind of good stress like, oh, I'm really excited to make this presentation today. I'm feeling a little stressed about showing up for it. That's not considered, stress does not mean bad. But stress where you're ruminating on things, you're super anxious in general, anxious about things you wouldn't normally be anxious about. Perhaps you have to have a dental procedure and you're anxious about it. I mean, that makes sense. But anxious just in everyday life and circumstances isn't great. So do you feel this daily, once in a while, or not really? You don't really pay much attention to it. It's not on your radar at all. Would you consider yourself happy most days? I know that this question, it's kind of like, should I put this in? And I think yes, because being happy and feeling joy is something that we want to note for ourselves. If there have been several days strung along lately, maybe longer than days, maybe it's weeks that you just haven't been happy or found happiness or joy in moments or things, I would say yes or not really. Do you have difficulty focusing on things or trouble thinking clearly? Oh, this was my thing for sure. I could not stay focused. I was having a lot of trouble just with, I would start a project and then not really be able to finish it. It wasn't like I was having trouble remembering things. I just felt like just foggy and not that sharp, mind that a lot of us want to have as often as we can. So if you have trouble focusing on things or thinking clearly, is that often? Is it sometimes or never? So then if you wrote down the numbers of where you stood, you can add all those up right now. And if I was to have taken this quiz 4 years ago, I would have scored 125 on a scale of 100. But taking it today, I'm probably still I'm not at 0 for sure, because I have family history and I still have to deal with a lot of stress here and there. But maybe I'm closer to the lower end. But that's only after lots and lots of work on myself and putting my health first. I want to mention, not just for healthcare practitioners, although that's very common, but across the board, women in general tend to put our health behind other responsibilities and other people in our lives. We might put it behind our family, including maybe our aging parents, our children, grandchildren, if that applies. And there's always somebody else in line first and not you. And this has got to be a swap that's done. And I did the master class in the Love Your Gut Club this month was all about mindset and switching habits and getting that mental fortitude and resilience going about your own health, because we cannot serve people well when we're operating from a place of lack. We can for a little bit, but eventually it doesn't work so well. So if you're closer to zero, so say 30 or less, you want to focus on optimizing your gut health, which means keep doing what you've been doing. You probably want to make sure, though, that you're eating more of the colors of the rainbow, eliminating inflammatory processed foods as much as possible so that you don't end up on the side closer to 100. If you're falling more in the middle of the numbers, say, anywhere between 40 to 70, you'd probably benefit from a little bit of detoxification, getting rid of more foods that are processed, avoiding eating at places where they're using a lot of refined sugars or just different ingredients in the food that you don't really know what's in there. Trying to cook more on your own if that's possible, or at least meal prepping and planning enough so that you can eliminate as many inflammatory foods as possible, eating more of the time. So let's say 75 to 80% of the time, trying to eat nutrient rich, plant-based, densely nutritious, right, food. And making sure you're scheduling time for exercising and moving, that each day you have time of quiet reflection, whether it's prayer, meditation, something, even if it's 5 minutes or less, to get into your body, can make a big difference in your stress responses. And then you can work up from that 5 minutes forward and also build from there on a longer practice. I currently still, even after all this time, I might only get in 10 minutes. I mean, days are busy. Certain days I might be able to get in more time, but it is about creating and carving out that habit of something missing from your day if you don't do it. And then if we're on the end of 70 to 100, I get it. I've been there. That is where we're really focusing on healing. And it's one of the biggest things that I do with people is not healing with multiple other supplementation or things like that, but healing with some of the things we mentioned earlier and some of the things too that we're going to mention going forward here. The interconnection root cause medicine. I kind of alluded to this at the opening, where you have a heart problem, you're told to see a cardiologist. You have skin issues, you go to dermatology. Your hormones are a little off, things don't seem right. Maybe the women's health, OBGYN, maybe you need bioidentical hormones, they'll say, or a estrogen patch or testosterone pellets, all these things, right? Weight gain, just eat better and do your best with the latest fad diet that might be out there. And these things just send us on kind of this up and down. Nobody's really seeing the whole picture type of response to our health needs. And it's not to say that you don't need these specialists and that it isn't great to get a skin exam every year to make sure you don't have melanoma or skin cancers like squamous or basal. Definitely, if you have heart issues or need to be screened with a stress test, it makes sense to use allopathic medicine. And I think it's just smart to do. It's not either this or that, but it's this and that. So your gut, though, is responsible for so many things beyond digestion. What does the gut do? The gut has to do with hormonal health and estrogen metabolism. So just think, do do you really need the hormones? Or if you fixed your gut, could your hormones be more regulated? This is the kind of thing I'm really, stressing in my coaching and education is almost all chronic conditions and chronic symptoms can be improved by improving our gut health overall. Stress response. The gut has its own nervous system. This is called the enteric nervous system. We have the central nervous system, which is one that most of us are familiar with. It's how we touch and feel and sense cold versus hot. The enteric nervous system is a little bit less noticeable, but that's where we get these sayings like, oh, I had a gut feeling about that, or oh, I have butterflies in my stomach. I mean, we have a lot of stress response and nervous system and nerves that happen in our GI tract, and yet for some reason, for years and years, right, since the medicine was established, has been, I think, really minimized as a place for real healing. Immune health is up to 80% of it is in our guts. Allergen responses, diabetes, inflammation modulation. So how we're reacting to things, how are we getting, rashes? Do we have an overactive immune system? We want our immune system to behave properly, but we don't want it to be hyper responsive. Brain health and cognitive function. There's so much on this. I don't want to go too deep into this in this workshop, but this is cutting edge as far as we know that helping people with dementia or Alzheimer's, they can be greatly improved by working on gut health. Not just that alone. I won't say that, oh, you make your gut better and that's gone. No, there's multiple things that they're doing with cognitive therapies and other modalities. But if you are someone that has this in your family, let's say it's in your genes don't determine your destiny, but let's say you have Alzheimer's and dementia, maybe your grandparent has it, or your parent. I would be doubling down on gut health in order to get my brain as healthy as possible. In fact, I was listening to a podcast yesterday with a scientist who was talking all about COVID and the penetration of the blood-brain barrier that COVID has, and that they don't quite understand what the long-term sequelae is, but they know that this is part of the residual post-viral brain fog, brain fuzziness that some patients are experiencing. So obviously we want to do everything we can to not have COVID because we don't want post-viral syndrome. But knowing that if we can improve our guts can maybe also improve the outcome if you were to be sick with something like COVID-19, which penetrates this blood-brain barrier, maybe not have as much of this long-term sequelae. Mental and emotional health, we know food is deeply connected to how well our minds function. Sugar can have a huge effect on all sorts of mental and emotional health, like anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD. Eating in a way that is best for our brain health can be super powerful beyond pharmaceutical medication. So how does the gut become unhealthy? Well, this is to do with the barrier of our gut is a very thin mucous membrane, and it goes, from the mouth to the anus. It's just one long tube, and we think, oh, it's just doing its job. We don't have to think about digesting our food. We don't have to think about working it through our system. It just happens. But functional medicine talks a lot about leaky gut, but conventional medicine and the gastroenterologists do acknowledge something called intestinal permeability. And this is where medications, toxins, stress, foods, lifestyle, it can cause these increased intestinal permeability. So the less we have of those things, the better, the stronger our intestines can be. This doesn't just happen by you take a supplement, like you take a probiotic and you're good to go. No, I wish that was the answer. I know that we are the culture of the drive-through, fast results. I want that yesterday, but that's just not how this works. This is a long game. It's a long journey. It's a continual road to creating an environment inside you that is the best, the healthiest place. And sometimes you nail it and sometimes you don't. For me, I definitely thought at one point this could be like, oh, you heal and then you're healed. Well, that's just not how it goes. And that's where having support, accountability, working with people on the same path as you and tuning into, whether it's podcasts or workshops like this, or surrounding yourself with people that are on that same path can be really empowering for you as well as supportive. The chronic inflammation of this increased intestinal permeability is what is impacting our immunity, the digestion, and our mood. And so if we can get a handle on lowering the state of chronic inflammation, and it doesn't mean you just live off of kale. No, in fact, raw vegetables can be very hard on people's guts. So this is not what this is about. This is a whole body transformational, multi-step experience. So first things first, what would be the first thing that you need to do to kind of, you saying, okay, Jen, I'm getting this, I feel this, my score is 60 or whatever it is. I want to get some things going. Where can I start? What am I going to do? So the first thing that I would recommend is to do an elimination diet, or at least begin with something like eliminating gluten and dairy. And a lot of people say, oh, this whole gluten thing, it just seems blown out of proportion. It doesn't make any sense to me. Is it propaganda? Is it sales? You're right. I mean, some of the food out there it says gluten-free, but there's tons of other junk in it. I don't think trading one for the other is a great plan, but eating food that looks closest to the way it does in nature is your safe bet. So take, for example, a broccoli. I mean, it looks like it does in nature. You can steam it and eat it. Oysters, shrimp, fish. Most fish looks like it does in nature, unless it's really big fish, which they always say the smaller fish are actually a bit healthier for you. Dairy alternatives, because we know that a lot of our dairy is, it could be hormones in the cow dairy. There's just inflammatory actions that seem to be happening based on cow's milk. I'm not sure that, other than being an infant, we were intended to drink milk. And I may get some pushback on this in general, but milk, especially breast milk, was designed to nourish and build the immune system of the baby. Consuming other animals' milk I'm not sure about the nutritious benefits of that, unless you are, especially in our culture that we are all currently living in, where food is plentiful. There are many, many things that we can buy and eat, and we're not in a starvation setting where anything we eat or drink would be of a great benefit to us. So when we can be picky and should be picky, eliminating gluten and dairy is a good first start. Common food irritants include soy, eggs, and corn. You won't know if you are sensitive to those until they're out, and then they come back in. And then grains and beans can also be in there. if you give your gut a rest from the foods which are hard to digest or possibly give you a reaction, it can make a big difference. I don't think that taking a blood test, I have a lot of people ask me this, and again, I'm probably going to get some comments on this, but oh, I just want to take a blood test and see what's bothering me. If you're symptomatic, meaning you have any gut symptoms at all, or you're having fatigue, or you're having weight gain, allergies, rashes, all the things I mentioned earlier, trouble sleeping, fatigue, on and on, you're going to probably have results that have a lot of possible false positives, false negatives. I'd probably lean more towards false positives, because when your body's in a state of inflammation, it's not really the time to do testing to see if your body is inflamed, because it's going to be inflamed. I would hate to see, and I have seen patients who eliminate foods forever that they're not really sensitive or allergic to, but that the test said that they were. And I think that doing it through, although it's not as easy as maybe taking a lab test, but it's definitely going to be more uniquely specific to you to do a process of elimination. You don't have to throw out everything at once, but this can be really helpful to see what could be causing some of your symptoms. For me personally, I eliminated all the things you see on the screen, and then I added back things one at a time, and I actually still eliminate corn, gluten, dairy, and some grains. And I do eat soy and eggs, but I try to keep that at a minimum. And I feel great, and the weight has stayed off too. What doesn't heal or optimize? So foods rich in omega-6 fatty acids, meats, dairy products like milk, cheese, butter, vegetable oils like corn and safflower. You want to limit refined grains, sugary beverages, trying to decrease the sugar as much as possible. It's hard. I'm going to just call it like it is. It is hard to not have sugar. I feel that way. I have a sweet tooth. I love sweets, but they don't serve us that well. It doesn't mean you can never have another cookie. We just want to be balancing that, that 75, 80% of the time, doing something that's a little better for us. Alcohol is a big one. My happy hour people that are listening, and wine, and all the things that have been, they've been greatly commercialized too. They've definitely done a great job at selling the idea that alcohol makes everything better, and maybe it does in some ways, but it's actually not good for us. It makes our brain shrink. It does all kinds of things to our body. It's actually a toxin. I am not completely alcohol free, so I'm not going to stand here and say you must eliminate alcohol, but I think if you're struggling, I would consider doing that for at least 3 weeks and see how much better you might feel. Many people will say, well, but Jen, I don't want to give things up. What am I going to eat? There's nothing to eat. I don't know what to eat. What am I supposed to eat? And I'm hoping this slide is worth its weight. Like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Look at all these foods on here. This is not like you eat the same 4 things. This is tons of food, tons of different kinds of food, lots of variety. Some may be in season more than others. You can certainly put frozen in the mix. Whole grains, fermented foods, seafood, if that's something that you like to have in your diet, tofu and temp, bone broth. I can't say enough about that. I think that can be really helpful for people. I know I recently on the podcast, I have Functionally Fit with Jenn Rice, that podcast episode of bone broth with the Broth Masters mother and daughter team. She had Crohn's, and her mother wanted to help her with her Crohn's and heal from the inside. And she began making their own bone broth, and her mother came up with this amazing, tasty, delicious, nutritious remedy. They got scientists involved with the right to cook the vegetables at the exact right level so that the nutrition quality was optimal, and they made a company out of it, and they're very successful. And if you're interested in a bone broth that you can order online, it's Broth Masters. That podcast episode is in the key there, and you can hear from her all about her journey and really the science behind the bone broth. Beans and legumes, good fats, spices and herbs. Spices and herbs, another podcast I did was all about spicing it up with a colleague who does a lot with Indian spices, and that episode gives you some great tips on spices there too. And these episodes are completely free and can be found on Apple or Spotify and some other places too. Okay, so if you're ready to make transformation that lasts, and this is where we're wrapping it up, we're right here at 30 minutes, and I wanted to be mindful of your time. Love Your Gut Club is a membership that I wanted to bring out because I kept hearing people say they wanted to make transformation and change, but maybe it was not in their budget to be able to see a functional medicine practitioner. They didn't want to join something like the Jenny Craig's or the WWs. They just don't want to eat like specific foods or count things. They don't want to count calories. They just want to heal their gut, love themselves again. And I'm just so passionate about this because I think already we have people in the membership from 2 other countries besides the United States, which to me was like completely exciting. I didn't even think about international appeal for this. But what do you get monthly? So founding members right now to the end of the month, which we're closing the membership on July 31st, and it'll be closed for a while just to kind of reset in there and go through, I need to have these breaks to be able to really focus in on the membership, and then, start back at opening the membership in a few months. So goal setting, monthly digital workbook that's I actually really love the workbook. I'm real proud of it. I didn't design it. I mean, I did the content for it, but the design turned out really well, and I'm excited that it flows nicely. It's not a lengthy workbook. It's something you can fill out in probably 30 minutes to an hour. And then at the end of the month, you go back to the workbook and kind of do some reflection. I do a monthly masterclass with on a topic, and then I'll probably be bringing in guest hosts too that are of value and can provide some different information than I may be giving. And then the open Q&A is really nice. You can submit if you can't be on live, so you can submit any questions at any time through the month, and I'll bring them up in the live recording and then put it into the membership so you can listen to other people's questions. Health can be tricky. Not everyone wants to share their specific questions with their name attached to it, and so I feel like this adds a layer of privacy to be able to submit these questions and then get the answer, but then people benefit from the answer, but not necessarily knowing exactly who originated the question if they didn't want to be known. Each week I take a anti-inflammatory like superstar ingredient. We've done blueberries, we've done spinach, I think cranberries is coming up. And then the end of the month celebrations, which we're getting ready to do on the platform this week. And this platform, it's all on Podia. So Podia is a independent platform, not connected to Facebook or Instagram or here on YouTube. I've done this purposely because I did think about doing a Facebook group, and we may add that at some point. But I think when it comes to health, I wanted this place where people could feel free to type things in, and it wasn't going to be up for anyone to see. There's a more of a privacy component to it. I feel like people are enjoying that part of it, and it adds that extra layer for me of privacy. Plus, you can message me at any time, which is a great feature on the platform. So we're doing, for this workshop, there's a special promo code where it actually gives you a instead of doing the free month coupon, I went ahead and changed it to where you have a 2-week free trial. So it's not going to charge you for the month, I don't believe, until 2 weeks from now, if you join today. And I feel like that's just a better option overall, so that you can see if it's something you want to do. If you like the things that are in there, you can certainly take advantage of the information and then opt out. And if you want to text me at the phone number there, you can definitely text me. I can do a complimentary 15-minute discovery call with you to see if maybe you need a more individualized program, if the membership is a fit for you. I'm just here to serve you at the level that works for you. So I hope that you found this value. And if anything, tune into the videos here on YouTube. All the podcasts have been recorded on video. You can also go over to there's links to the audio version of the podcasts too. And if you have questions, just please put them in the comments. I will look at them as soon as I stop the live. And thank you so much for being here today. I hope this was of value to you. If you got some value from this, consider sharing it with someone who you think might find benefit in this. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Take care.